okay, I'm going to take off my cape.
Oh.
I'm a little excited. First of all, thanks very much for inviting us to talk to you today about this important initiative. The audience here of Rotary is especially important because you're part of this organization because of your commitment to community, your commitment to youth. And wherever I've been city manager, and by the way, Rotarian, what I've seen is the importance of what you bring to the table in terms of helping build community. And that's what this is all about. Before I get into a discussion about our initiative here, I want to ask you a few questions. First of all, how many people here have or hope to have children or grandchildren?
Okay.
How many of you have concerns about the future that you will leave your children and grandchildren? We all do. And what this is really about, this initiative, is about getting your voice and your opinions to help shape the future of this region. When I first started as city manager, one of the things that I noted, and this was a long time ago, is we could in many ways pretty much control what happened in our individual communities, but that's not so much the case anymore. We're much more influenced by what happens within the region. So even Charlotte, a larger city like Charlotte, depends a lot on what happens in the rest of the region in terms of really shaping our future. So we need to make sure that we have an intentional design for the future with a focus on what's important for the region. And again, let me just ask for your indulgence and ask you just to identify what worries you when you think about challenges for the future of this region and your children and your grandchildren. What are those concerns that you have about this region?
Subpar education, high dropout rate.
Education.
Water.
Water. What else?
Transportation.
Transportation. Like jobs. Anything else?
Natural resources.
Natural resources.
Education again.
Education.
And again.
We continue to hear these things, and they are critical. And what we know now is that if we look across the country and we look at what is working in the high-performing cities and regions across the country, what are they doing? What can we learn from them? One of the things we've learned is that those regions are working together on some issues where collaboration on a regional basis will help you get better results. And what are some examples of that? Well, we're going to walk through that, but I want to start this with also bringing to your attention a handout that Crystal Joy has provided you with a sign-up sheet, because the ask at the end of this is we're going to ask you to invest 2 hours of your time, 2 hours, and we're going to give you there's a total of now 48 different opportunities, different times, different locations that you can participate. We just need 2 hours of your time to help make sure that there's a better future for your children and grandchildren. And so, why are we looking at developing a framework for growth for this region? Well, first of all, we know that this is the fastest growing large region in the country. That is a region of over 1 million. This is the fastest growing region in the country over the last census period. And we're projected to grow by 50% in 2 decades and double in 4 decades. We need to create jobs. We need to make sure that there's jobs here for people, because if they're not, most of those people will still come here. And people without jobs is not a good thing. So we need to make sure that we're very intentional about growing jobs and about how we accommodate that significant increase in population. And I can tell you as a former city manager, and my focus was a lot on finance. The concern I always have is how do you make all this work? How do you make sure that we can control the cost of government still grow jobs in the economy and maintain and improve quality of life. So big challenge. We want to make sure that we're addressing issues like the infrastructure, water and sewer. But we have to have jobs. We have to make sure that people are trained for those jobs, because when businesses look to locate, they're looking for more than they have in the past. And one of the things they're looking for is a trained workforce. They want to know that we can not only train their current workforce, but upgrade that workforce. We need to make sure that we can also maintain good quality of life. Again, businesses are looking for locations where their employees want to live, and they don't all want to live in the same type of communities. We started this process, this initiative, about a year ago actually, and the first set of open houses that we held throughout the region, a lot of folks just like you participated, and you can see what they identified as major challenges. Pretty much what you said here. This is what they said are important. This becomes, by the way, our evaluation criteria for the plans, the framework for the plans that will be developed for this region. And by that I mean we're going to measure different options for the growth of this area. We're going to measure how effective they are in addressing transportation, jobs, schools, and infrastructure. So what is this initiative? This is a regional planning effort across the region, across 2 states, that we're getting elected officials, but also residents from the regions together to really help us identify this region, how should it grow in terms of the essential physical and social infrastructure to make sure that we are able to deliver on quality jobs, growing the economy, controlling cost of government, and improving quality of life. So this is a 3-year process. We're at a very important stage, and that's where you come in. The master plans for a region like this are important, and by a master plan, what we're really looking at is a framework that communities from throughout this region in both states can look at and assess how their individual communities' planning will accommodate growth within the context of a larger region, and what they can do to really facilitate their community's growth in a way that's more effective. That doesn't mean that everybody's got to follow and every community is going to look the same. In fact, they're going to look quite different. And they're going to look different because individual communities have different needs. But those needs can be coordinated and deliver a more effective product over the long run. It also helps us get better results. And as we can see, some of the results that you've seen, we've seen across the country include better transit options. Salt Lake City is an example of that. Sacramento had a very specific focus on housing, identifying what are those housing needs that they see, and how do the communities work together to make sure that those housing needs are in place. Some of you are maybe at a time where you're going to be looking at changing your housing options. Most people that do that want to still stay in their community, stay in their neighborhood, go to the same church, attend the same Rotary Club, enjoy the same community. But a lot of communities don't have housing options that will allow them to do that. So this provides information, but also resources that will help them accomplish it. There's also some significant cost savings. In Salt Lake City identified that if they built out the way they had originally planned before they looked at potential coordination, if they had built out that way, it would have cost them $4.5 billion more than their eventual plan that they developed by working together. Kansas City identified a $2 billion savings. And that's important because, quite frankly, that money is just not going to be there. We're not going to have as much money from the federal and state government as we had to build roads and other infrastructure. So we have to find a way to do this more efficiently. How do we do this? The most important part of this, and that's where you come in, is we have to listen very carefully to what people want. Because developing the most technically perfect plan in the world really doesn't work if we don't understand what people want, what's important to them. So you have to tell us, you have to be at the table and actually help us build the plans on a local level that can then be combined and coordinated. So the first is listen, the next is choosing. We have to map what we want for the region, and then we have to act. So we're going to end up with not just a plan, but a set of very specific action steps that will allow communities to work together to actually achieve this coordinated growth plan for this region. This initiative, as I mentioned, is underway already. We've had thousands of people participate, as I mentioned earlier, at Happy Dollars. We had our first of 17 different dates that have been identified for this region, and we had over 150 participate in that event. We need to make sure that we can continue to have that type of participation. So we need not only you to sign up, that's a given, that you will all sign up, but we also need you to invite others that you know that care about the future of this region. Certainly we want you to focus in on a couple of areas. First of all, think about the youth, and you work a lot with youth. Think about the youth, because what we're talking about is building stuff for them, building stuff for your children and grandchildren. They need to be at these meetings to help us understand more what their needs are and what their interests are. Secondly, we want you to look at folks that typically don't attend these events and encourage them to show up. So think about who those might be and invite them. Invite them, drive them. Tell them that you'll go to one of these sessions with them. It's easy to do, and as I said, it takes just 2 hours of time. And the feedback we received yesterday, and you can look at this online, we're going to post this, is people had a good time. They enjoyed it. They found it very meaningful and worthwhile, and I think you will too. These workshops are going to be held one in each county except Mecklenburg. Is going to have now 4, I think. We're going to have 4 in Mecklenburg because the population is bigger, and we want to make sure that there's ample opportunity for people to participate. So there's 4 opportunities here in Mecklenburg, 4 different dates, 3 times a day, in the morning and an afternoon and an evening session. So that's 4 times 3. That gives us 12 opportunities in Mecklenburg alone, plus other areas. So there should be opportunity for you to participate. But at the end of it, you actually create a map of the preferred growth scenario for this region, and you will offer recommendations. That information gets combined and gets used by elected officials and other community leaders who are helping make decisions regarding what's the best framework for the future. The 3 locations are identified here. There's a 4th that was just added this week, but it is on your handout. You can fill out the form today. Just give us a call or register online. Very easy to do. The times are all identified here. The mornings, there's a morning and an afternoon and evening session. So that's really what I'm here to ask you to do. I'd be pleased to respond to any questions you may have.
You're listening to citizens. Who's listening to you?
The next step in this process, there's actually 2 different groups that have already been formed. One of them is a group of technical representatives from what we call our consortium partners. So governments at the city and the county level, as well as businesses. We have folks from banks, we have folks from the Builders Association, we have folks from non-for-profit groups that participate in this, we have folks from the real estate industry that are part of what is called a consortium program group. That's the technical group that take this input and then develop some draft recommendations with pros and cons. And then there's a group, a policy forum, which are elected officials from those same type of organizations, but also business leaders and other community leaders and representatives from different organizations. That policy group also meets, and they've each met at least 4 times, and they're going to continue to meet and sift through this data and come up with those recommendations and make final decisions regarding what is the best framework and recommendations for how we should grow as a region. Does that answer your question?
It does. And you are optimistic that all of these groups can come together and...
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we've designed, the good news about this is we're not inventing fire here. Other regions have done this, and I'll tell you a little city manager secret, because I adopted that here, is I don't believe in inventing fire. If somebody's done something before well, we take what they've done well and learn from it. And so we've built on that. But we have great partners here. I failed to acknowledge Crystal Lee, for example, Crystal Joy from the Lee Institute is here, and they're one of our partners. University of North Carolina, Charlotte is one of our partners. We have a number of partners that help us with different parts of what we're doing. But the Lee Institute is helping us with the public engagement, and they have an historic and well-established reputation for doing just what you've asked. Actually, what we're talking about is influence. How do we influence the elected officials and how they think about the role? And so that's why we brought them in from the very beginning, and that's why we've asked and really encourage you to participate, because elected officials are elected because people trust their judgment. And in most cases, elected officials want to hear from the public, and they want to know what they're doing is based upon what the needs of the public are. So what they've asked, the elected officials especially, from the very beginning, and they said, we want to know that we're hearing from folks throughout the region, and we want to know that we're hearing diverse views, because there's no right or wrong to what we're talking about doing here. What we need to know is what do people think, what are they worried about, what are their concerns, and how do they think we should address those issues. And we're getting some great results. This initiative is funded by the federal government, and they have people that check in with us and to make sure that we're on the right track. And it's called a peer review, and the peer review folks tell us that we're one of the top performing regions in the country in terms of getting the public involvement and engagement. We're doing much better than others, and I don't think that's a big surprise. People here in this region, what I've seen is you care about the future and you care about your children. There's a real understanding of what I call legacy planning and legacy for folks. That's why you're here. It's legacy. And so 2 hours of time for this legacy is important. And that's why it's going to make a difference, because there's been such active participation.
Would you define what is the region? Is it Centralina? We're talking 2 states. We're talking 6 or 8 counties.
Yeah.
Do
we have one map? Yeah, it's the region is defined by, generally, if you take a look. Yep, it's on the first. So it's 10 North Carolina counties, and then 4 South Carolina counties.
I kind of piggyback on that.
Sure.
Ultimately, when we come down to the end and everybody's had their say, and we've done all the brainstorming and all the, I'd like to have, it comes down to a turf battle. It always will.
Yeah.
How do you handle this so that Cabarrus County gets its say in Mecklenburg, has its say in York County, has its say in?
The discussion we've had from the very beginning when we started talking about this with counties and cities is this. Very simply, what we want to make sure we do is begin to identify those areas where there is common agreement on what we can do to help the region. Those areas that are a little bit more difficult to deal with or very controversial, we're probably not going to deal with those right away. But we will take advantage of building trust relationships, and I think there's a growing understanding that very rarely will one part of the region be able to really do well if the rest of the region doesn't do as well. And we're identifying those. Let me give you a very brief example of that. One of the first initiatives that we were able to look at was in the area of jobs, helping make sure that there was jobs available for people who live here now and may come here, but also for the employers. And so what we're working on and will be operational by the end of this year already will be a platform that is called Career Headlights that will collect from the businesses throughout this region what are the jobs that exist now here, what are the jobs that will be coming, what type of specific training will be needed for those jobs. That information is going to be on a platform. It's going to be gathered from throughout the region, not just county by county, but throughout the whole region. And that information can be available to all those that provide training, community colleges, university, but others as well. They'll be able to access that information and have really pretty detailed technical information regarding the type of training and even certifications that will be required. We're going to even go back and calibrate and make sure that the training provided actually delivers the skills that people, that the employers want. That information is going to be available, as I said, to those providing the training on a regional basis. But we'll also make it available to those that provide career counseling and just parents or individuals that want to look at, here's a skill I have now, here's the type of job I want, what's the gap, and where do I get the training? And so making that combination is going to be, is going to put us really, as far as we know, one of the largest region in the country that's done anything like that. It's a pretty basic concept, and what we're hearing right now across the region is that people are pretty excited about this. Community colleges love it, the employers love it, and certainly the employee counselors love it as well. The other thing we're doing is in the area of housing. We're collecting information. I mentioned earlier about Sacramento, identified what those housing needs are. We've seen what happens when people build housing and there isn't demand for it. You can create some real problems. So identifying in a more scientific way by actually doing housing surveys, what are those housing needs are, not just in terms of the quantity of housing, but what type of housing, what are the price points in housing, what's the style of the housing. So owner-occupied versus rental, but also one level versus two levels, senior versus young family, etc. What type of housing do we need throughout the region? Having that information available to communities, so as they develop plans for their community, they can see here's what our needs are, and develop plans for their community more consistent with those market needs. That's going to help because it's also going to make it available. It's also going to make it more likely that employees who are growing, employers that are growing, will have housing available for the employees that locate to their industry. So those are the types of very practical, pragmatic. This is not something that is foreign to any of us working at the local level. This is pretty practical stuff. But it works. It only works if you're involved and engaged. Other questions? Well, thank